After 20 years of caring for my wife's daughter, I was abandoned by her at the wedding when she chose her biological father over me. I've been married to Sarah for more than 20 years. When we met, she was a single mother of a 5-year-old child named Emma. Emma was a bright-eyed, inquisitive little girl with a laugh that could brighten up any room. The first time I saw her, she was chasing a paper airplane in the park, clutching Sarah's hand tightly as they moved toward me. Something in that instant told me they were the future. Sarah was open about her past right from the start. Emma's biological father, Mark, had always been untrustworthy, full of hollow promises and transient appearances. He would call on birthdays, drop off cheap gifts, and then go. Emma was usually excited when Daddy arrived, despite Sarah's efforts to keep her expectations in check. When Sarah and I became serious, she made it obvious that Emma was her top priority. I totally accepted it. What I didn't expect was how much I'd come to love her. It didn't happen right away, but every "I love you, Dad," and every small sketch with my name misspelled eventually won me over. I was present when she learnt to ride a bike after numerous falls and scraped knees. I was there when she developed a high temperature in the middle of the night, cuddling her while Sarah ran for a thermometer. I helped her memorize her poem for her first school recital. On the big day, she shook behind the curtain but caught my gaze in the crowd before she began, needing reassurance that I was present. I always was. Mark, on the other hand, was merely a background character. He made huge promises such as, "Next summer I'll take you to the beach," or "I'll buy you that bike you want," but never followed through. Emma used to cry when those promises broke apart, and I would pick up the pieces. I never wanted to be the reason she stopped believing in her father. As she grew older, our friendship grew stronger. I was the one who attended her school meetings, helped her choose her graduation gown, and cheered her on from the bleachers during her games. She called me Dad, and even though I wasn't her biological father, I could see she meant it. That's why what occurred next devastated me. I wholeheartedly supported Emma's decision to attend college. I paid for much of her tuition, books, and even her little apartment rent. It was a financial cost, but I did not mind. I wanted her to have the opportunities I never had. Mark, as always, was inconsistent. He would occasionally call to say, "Your dad is proud of you," but he never contributed monetarily or actively participated in her life. Emma went up to me after the graduation ceremony, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for everything, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." At that point, every sacrifice seemed worthwhile. So when Emma announced her wedding to Andrew, I was ecstatic. I imagined escorting her down the aisle, a symbolic moment that reflected everything we had gone through. I never stated it aloud, but I assumed that honor was mine. After all, I had been there for her at every milestone. The weeks leading up to the wedding were full with anticipation. Emma discussed her outfit, the flowers, and the music. As always, I offered my assistance, paying for a portion of the reception, donating to her attire, and covering additional expenses. I never anticipated anything in return, other than to be recognized as an important part of her day. Then the invitation arrived. I opened it with a smile, expecting to find my name in a particular place. Instead, it was only a formal guest list. My name wasn't really significant. Worse, Emma had selected Mark to accompany her down the aisle. At first, I assumed it was an error, but when I asked her about it, her remark hit me like a blow in the belly. "There's only one biological father, and I've always wanted to give him this moment." I can't express how it felt to have years of love, sacrifice, and effort rejected as nothing. But the worst part wasn't her choice. It was how nonchalantly she said it, as if she'd never considered choosing me. Her wedding day was one of the most embarrassing experiences of my life. I arrived early in a fitted suit, sat quietly among the guests, and watched Mark escort Emma down the aisle. During the remarks, I waited for someone to acknowledge me. Nobody did. I was invisible. Something inside of me snapped that day. The part of me that had always been willing to give up simply shut down. I didn't realize it at the time, but that moment signaled the start of a shift that would change everything. That moment, watching Emma come down the aisle on Mark's arm, was etched in my memory. She was gorgeous, as any bride should be, yet the vision left me bitter. Not because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I recognized in that moment that I was no longer her priority. Emma and Andrew embarked on a lavish honeymoon at a seaside resort with stunning views and first-rate amenities the week after their wedding. I did not ask many questions about it. I couldn't bring myself to talk about something that was the breaking point in our relationship. What I hadn't expected was what happened when Emma returned. She barely had time to unpack before contacting me. Her tone was light, as if nothing had occurred. She spoke about the beaches and the surprise meal Andrew had planned under the sky. I listened silently, answering briefly and fighting to maintain my composure. Then the talk went the way I should have expected. "Dad," she stated. The familiarity of that word wounded harder than I'd like to acknowledge. "I need a favor." They had some unexpected honeymoon expenses and were running low on cash. Could I help with the cost? For a moment, I was speechless. She asked so casually and confidently, as if she expected me to answer yes, like I had always done. I was the one who corrected things, provided, and made selfless sacrifices for her. But this time, something inside me resisted. Maybe it was wounded pride, or maybe it was the weight of years of neglect. All I know is that for the first time, I did not feel compelled to say yes. "I'm sorry, Emma," I replied, holding my voice steady while my heart hammered. "I can't help you this time." There was silence. I could image her expression of confusion. "But you've always helped before," she finally remarked, her voice filled with skepticism. I took a deep breath. "Maybe you should ask Mark. He's your real father, isn't he? Maybe he can help." There was another long pause, followed by a whispered, "I understand," before she hung up. There was no dispute or fury, only an abrupt conclusion that left an empty space in my chest. Later, Sarah confronted me. She called me heartless and claimed I couldn't simply abandon Emma when she needed me. I told her it was not about money, but about respect. I was there for her for over 20 years, Sarah. And when she had the chance to acknowledge that, she chose to act like it wasn't enough. I can't keep being her backup plan whenever things don't go her way. Sarah did not comprehend. To her, blood always came first, even if it had just made empty promises. The chat ended in silence, but something altered between us. An invisible wall appeared where none had before existed. Emma has not contacted me since. Sarah told me shortly after that call that Andrew was furious with me for abandoning Emma in a difficult situation. Mark had apparently vanished, with no calls, messages, or other indications. I suppose Emma was now realizing the truth, but it didn't erase what she had done or how she had made me feel. That night, alone in the living room, I replayed every moment I had spent with Emma, every time she smiled and called me Dad. And then I knew something. I'd always assumed the title was a decision, a sign that I'd earned my place in her life. But now I wonder whether it was just a convenient word for her, something she said when it suited her. I'm not sure if I'll ever get over this, but one thing is certain. This time, I won't be the one who keeps giving. To be honest, I don't think I have anything left to give. 3 months have passed after the wedding, and despite my best efforts to distance myself, drama continues to find me. Sarah is continually trying to mend things between Emma and me, gazing at me with a mix of disappointment and imploring, as if waiting for me to give in and return to being the man who never said no. But she doesn't realize, or refuses to accept, that something within me altered that day. I can't simply go back to how things were. Since the call in which I declined to pay for Emma's honeymoon, our relationship has entirely vanished. She hasn't contacted me, and while that stung at first, it now feels like relief. There will be no more solicitations for money disguised as casual check-ins. What surprised me was how rapidly issues arose in her marriage. Sarah, of course, remained in constant communication with Emma and casually mentioned it over dinner one night. "Emma and Andrew are struggling financially," she moaned loudly. "Andrew lost his job, and they're having trouble paying rent." I kept eating, knowing what was coming. Sarah continued, "Don't you think we should help them? She's our daughter after all." I sat down with my fork and took a long breath. "I'm not her father anymore, Sarah. According to Emma, that role belongs to Mark. So if she needs help, she should ask him." Sarah glanced at me as if I'd just said something terrible. "How can you be so cold? She's always counted on you. You can't turn your back on her now." I laughed bitterly. Cold? Cold is what she did to me at her wedding, because honestly, that's exactly how it felt. Cold and invisible, like I never spent 2 decades being the one who was there for her. If Mark is her father for the big moments, then he can be her father in the difficult ones too. This concluded our conversation. Sarah stormed away, carrying her plate to the sink. That night, we slept silently, with our backs to each other. It pained that this was damaging our relationship, but I couldn't keep being the man who gave and gave while receiving nothing in return. Despite everything, Emma reached out quickly, albeit not explicitly. A week later, I received a message from Andrew. He wrote, short but desperate, "Hey, it's Andrew, Emma's husband. I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have time?" I didn't immediately respond. I left the message there as a reminder of how dramatically things had changed. I read it several times, knowing exactly what he wanted: money. There was always money. I eventually decided to hear him out. I had nothing to lose. We met in a neighborhood cafe. Andrew was already there, nervously tapping his foot and looking at the untouched coffee. I sat down silently, expecting him to speak first. "Thanks for coming," he finally murmured, his tone lacking sincerity. It seemed more like an obligation. "I know things have been tense between you and Emma, but we're going through a difficult time and I was hoping you could help." There it was, the expected request. I kept my expression neutral. "What do you need?" I inquired, despite the fact that I already knew. Andrew groaned and stared at his coffee, as if looking for the proper words. "Emma and I have been struggling financially since the honeymoon. I recently lost my job, and we are now behind on rent. If we don't pay in 2 weeks, we will be evicted." I nodded carefully, allowing his words to sink in before asking the one question he clearly hadn't expected. "Have you asked Mark?" Andrew looked up, puzzled. "Mark?" "No, we haven't talked to him. Emma thought you might be able to help. You've always been there for her." I smiled, but it wasn't a friendly one. It was bitter. "Ironic." "Exactly," I murmured, leaning forward. "And yet, when she had to choose, she picked Mark. So no, Andrew, I won't be helping this time. Maybe it's time for Mark to finally step up for once." Andrew tried to argue that it wouldn't be fair if they were evicted. That it wasn't only about Emma, but also about him. I raised a hand to stop him. "This conversation is over," I stated firmly. "I wish you both the best, but I can't keep solving your problems." I stood up, leaving him to his cold coffee and frustration. When I arrived home, Sarah was waiting for me, like if she knew what had happened. I didn't give her any specifics because she didn't need them. She could tell I'd declined to help. Emma and Andrew have since stopped trying. Sarah is still unhappy, but she has stopped pushing me to give in. But something tells me that this is not over. When a castle collapses, there is always more rubble to come. 6 months have passed since the wedding, and to be honest, they have felt weirdly liberated. I've held steadfast in my choice not to get involved in Emma and Andrew's troubles, even if it means dealing with Sarah's persistent resentment. She does not say it directly, but I can see it in her eyes. She hasn't forgiven me for what she considers a betrayal. No matter how many times I explain that this is not about money, but about respect, she either doesn't get it or refuses to. But the space between Emma and me has provided unexpected solace. For the first time in years, I am free of the burden of always being the one to keep everything together. I've refocused on myself, taken up old hobbies like woodworking, and spent more time with friends, things I'd neglected for far too long. I felt awful at first for taking this space for myself, but now I see it as vital. Still, the drama has not subsided. Sarah told me a few weeks ago that Emma and Andrew had finally been evicted. They couldn't come up with enough money to catch up on rent, and their landlord lost patience. They're now staying with Andrew's mother in a tight apartment that barely fits 2 people, let alone a married couple. Sarah was outraged as she told me this. "This wouldn't have happened if you had helped them," she added, her tone heavy with the now familiar blame. I did not bother answering. Whatever I said, Sarah would always perceive me as the villain responsible for Emma's problems. What she doesn't know is that deep down, I know I did the right thing. Emma chose to throw me aside, and now she has to deal with the repercussions. Sarah finds it ironic that Mark has been absolutely absent during this. He didn't even answer when Emma asked for aid. It's not surprising, given his track record of unreliability. But I find it odd that, despite Emma's efforts to elevate him, he is nowhere to be found when she needs him the most. Sarah told me something a few days ago when she was making dinner, and it almost made me chuckle. Emma says Mark promised to help her find a new place to live, but he still hasn't followed through. He says he's waiting for his finances to stabilize. I arched an eyebrow, staring at her in amazement. And Emma still believes him? After a lifetime of broken promises, she still believes him? I inquired, not angry, but really curious. Sarah sighed and looked at me with despair. "He's her father," she stated simply, as if this explained everything. That exchange stuck in my memory for years. I had attempted to replace the vacuum Mark had left in Emma's life, but now I wondered if it had all been in vain. Perhaps biology has always been more important to her than her deeds. Perhaps I was never competing with Mark's presence, but with the mere fact that he existed. Emma finally contacted me around a week ago. Surprisingly, it was not about money. She sent a message indicating she wanted to meet and speak. I was hesitant to respond for a long time, but curiosity eventually won out. We met at a park that she used to frequent when she was younger. Emma was already there, sitting on a bench and nervously fidgeting with her hands. When I approached, she rose up and gave me a cautious hug. One that did not feel sincere, but which I accepted out of politeness. We sat for a few minutes in awkward silence. Then she began speaking, but not about why she had summoned me there. Instead, she talked about how difficult it was to live with Andrew's mother, the strain in her marriage, and how much she missed her own space. I listened without interrupting. I could see she had a lot to unload. She finally came to the point. "Dad," she murmured, a word that once meant a lot to me but now feels hollow. "I know I've disappointed you. I know the wedding hurt you, and I don't think I realized how much until it was too late." I waited, allowing her to continue. Inside, I felt a range of feelings, including disbelief, sadness, and lingering bitterness. Emma took a big breath before saying, "I just want to say I'm sorry for how things turned out. I never meant to make you feel replaced." "But you did," I said calmly and firmly. "Not just at the wedding, Emma. Every time you ignored everything I did for you, every time you chose to see Mark as something he never was. You say you didn't want me to feel replaced, but honestly, I don't think I was ever in that place to begin with." Emma looked down, clearly startled by my remarks. Perhaps she expected me to simply take her apologies and go back to the way things had been, but that wasn't an option anymore. Certain things, once broken, cannot be fixed. The conversation came to an end shortly thereafter. As we said our goodbyes, she told me she hoped we might repair our connection over time. I didn't answer, not because I didn't want it to happen, but because I wasn't sure it could. Emma didn't simply break my heart, she also shattered something deeper, my faith in her. Update: I did something that Sarah and Emma will never forgive me for, and I'm not sure whether I should even seek forgiveness. My relationship with Sarah has deteriorated beyond what I could have imagined during the last year, following the wedding. What began as an emotional distance has grown into an insurmountable divide. We no longer feel the love, bond, or respect that we once had. We still share a house, but not our lives. Since the wedding, there has been no intimacy. At first, I assumed it was a momentary reaction to stress, but as the months went, I realized Sarah was more than upset. She was bitter. She blamed me for Emma's pain, and this anger permeated every aspect of our marriage. We used to spend our nights talking or watching movies, but now they are silent. Every time I try to reach out, she pulls back, creating a barrier between us. In the midst of this desolation, Sophie, Sarah's best friend, joined my life. She had always been Emma's delightful aunt, bringing her lavish gifts and telling humorous stories. However, after the wedding, something changed. She began phoning more frequently, checking up on me. At first, I assumed she was attempting to help Sarah and me reconcile. But as time passed, I understood it was more than that. Sophie was the only person who really listened. She told me something no one else had. That I was correct. That my feelings were genuine. That I had been treated unfairly, and that Sarah was being unkind to me. I grew to look forward to our chats. She did not perceive me as the villain in this scenario. I will not suggest that this was planned, since it was not. It just happened, like a river discovering a new route. One night, after another lengthy conversation, we sat in silence, just looking at each other. We had discussed everything. How I felt invisible in my own home, how Sarah had become chilly, and how my life seemed to be crumbling apart. Sophie suddenly seized my hand and said something that left me speechless. "You deserve to be happy, and they aren't letting you." I'm not sure what made me lean in, her voice, the way she looked at me, but before I knew it, I was kissing her, and she didn't move away. That night, I did not go home. I spent the hours with Sophie, talking and laughing, allowing months of repressed feelings to surface. For the first time in years, I felt seen. I felt wanted. Most significantly, I felt understood. I know I'm doing something wrong, yet I don't regret it. Sophie has been my sanctuary, someone who actually sees me. I found with her what I had lost with Sarah: connection. Sarah suspects something. She observes me when I arrive home late or leave to answer messages, but she has not confronted me. Sophie too experiences guilt, but neither of us regrets our actions. I know this cannot endure. When Sarah finds out, there is no turning back. But for the time being, I don't feel alone. Final update. 2 years have gone. Looking back, it seems like a faraway storm, yet the wounds linger. I've rebuilt my life, but I'm not sure if I can ever reverse the harm. Sarah and Emma cut me out totally, which freed me. When I eventually admitted, Sarah's reaction was even more strong than I had anticipated. She confronted me before I could respond. "What is this? I've seen the way you've changed. Tell me the truth," I said. "Sophie and we've been seeing each other. She was there for me when no one else was." Sarah's expression shifted from disbelief to wrath. Then followed the words that still haunt me. "So all of it, everything we built, meant nothing to you?" I stood there, speechless. All I had done was try to keep my family together, but I had failed. "Sarah," I replied, my voice quivering. While you were trying to save Emma, I lost myself, and you didn't even notice. She yelled so loudly that it hurt. What you've done is unforgivable. How could you destroy our family? Emma walked in. She already knew. Her voice was icy. I thought you were better than this, but you never cared, did you? You just wanted to be the hero, and look at what you've done. That's not true, I replied, frightened. You pushed me away. You chose Mark, and when you needed something, I was just supposed to fix it. But when I gave you everything, it was never enough. Was it enough? Sarah cried. That doesn't justify this betrayal. Clara, let him go. And with that, they urged me to leave and never contact them again. It stung, but I felt relieved. There was nothing more to save. I relocated to a little flat. The divorce procedure was arduous, but the legal struggle was not the most painful part. It was realizing that the life I had built was over. Sophie was there for me throughout it all, providing comfort and motivation. She did not excuse my mistakes, but she also did not criticize me. Months later, as I was finally getting my life back together, I received a message from Emma. Dad, I know I hurt you. I know I failed you, but you will always be my father. I'm sorry. I know things will never be the same, but I will always love you. I did not respond right away. The wounds were still too deep. Maybe one day I'll find peace, but for now, I'm moving on, regardless of what I've left behind. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.